What's up, everybody? This is 13 with Superior Mobile ByThirteen. Today I get to go over this Jeep Frankenstein's monster of a vehicle. I believe the body is, I think it's called a Scrambler. It's a Jeep CJ8, like a 76 to 86 range. Apparently the engine and drivetrain, transmission and stuff is all out of a Jeep Grand Cherokee. I don't know what year that thing is. And these step bars that I installed are off of a Jeep Wrangler. So we got all sorts of different sort of bits and bobs of Jeep parts all over this thing. And this has been one of my long-term projects. It's been in the shop now for about 6 or 7 weeks. I've been chipping away at it, doing about 2 to 4 hours a day around other jobs and projects. And to be honest, I'm super happy that it's done because now I can get out of here and I can get some space back. But this is for my buddy Luke, who owns Qmar Automotive here in Tarpon Springs. Good dude, and handed this project over to me. And although I tried to bail out of it, he did force me to do it, and I think I delivered pretty well. So what I did on this was the entire electrical harness. I literally mean from headlights to taillights. So we don't have the headlights in right now because the headlights that he bought are trash and he thinks he can make them fit, but I already know that they won't. But this is pre-wired, so we've got the headlights. I have installed these guys too. All of the wiring is wrapped in this TESA tape. I'm not some huge advocate for TESA or whatever, but I mean, this stuff really is great for this type of purpose. Plus, since Chrysler vehicles tend to use TESA tape anyway, I can say that it's like for the OEM aesthetic. But we have OEM plugs that go to things like this, and then it's just all wrapped in tape. It goes through the firewall harness right there, and this wire is for his horn that he said he wanted to install there. I did all of that little wiring that goes across the firewall over to the battery. I'll cover that in a second. What you're probably asking is, what's the wiring harness? It is this product. This is the first time that I've actually done a full vehicle wiring harness under my own name. I've done a couple while working for other shops in the past. The plot twist is that I had this for the primary harness, but we couldn't use that for the majority of the applications because the ECM was actually going to be out of a Grand Cherokee. So moving over here, this is the custom ECM that he had made that I just mounted to a board of PVC, painted it black, mounted up against the future AC handler box. And that wiring harness, which I said was made by somebody else, is integrated into certain aspects of the vehicle, and it has a bunch of OEM plugs that go to all of the engine components. Now, the agreement that Luke and I had was that basically I don't claim to fully understand internal combustion engines anymore. Not that I ever really did, to be honest. So I got as much of that done as possible, but ultimately the final connection to the engine and how all of that was wired is totally up to him. And it's only because of that collaborative nature of this project that we could even agree to do this, because I can do the electrical side of it, but I can't claim to understand how this engine's gonna run. In addition to that custom ECM harness, which is going to that guy, as well as the American Roadwire kit, there's also the Dakota digital setup right there. So even that affected how I was doing the primary wiring harnesses. So I was kind of doing 3 electrical projects simultaneously. 4 if we add in the step bars, which I'm going to go over in a minute. Now, if you'll notice that I got this huge coil of wires, that is a Luke assignment, and those primarily are just going to go into the Dakota digital's brain right there. I've already pre-wired. There's a little plug for a USB charger, and this is the plug for his radio that he's installing in this thing. Interestingly enough, he insisted on having me pre-wire the radio, but we're not pre-wiring for speakers or audio system yet, so, you know, I guess there will be multiple phases of this thing. I did do some sound deadener on the back firewall. There were a bunch of holes and stuff in there. I sealed all the holes with JB Weld and then deadened over it, so it was a little bit of a rehab project as well. Over here, I've got a little relay bank set up and a fuse holder set up that I dig on. That's all part of the Grand Cherokee wiring harness for that ECM. Let's come around back to under the hood, because I said I'd go over this battery setup. He provided the battery, I provided the battery terminals. I'm gonna try and do my best to show this off, but it's gonna be a little difficult with these shadows. This is the fuse holder for the step bars, and this is the primary fuse holder for all the OEM electrical. This is the fuse holder for the electronic fan setup, which is over here on the fender well. Something I like to point out is that every single one of these things that I mounted is a machine screw into a nutsert. So if we look up in there, you can see that that is a nutsert. So I'm not using any self-tapper screws anywhere in this bad boy. And anytime I had to do an electrical connection, like the taillights, or in this case, these are the fans, I use Deutsch connectors. So we've got nice, solid, robust, serviceable, waterproof connectors. Out of that American Roadwire kit, I've got my alternator wired up. That runs right to my positive battery terminal there, through the fuse holder, of course. The starter wire is actually connected to the post, and it runs down and underneath the vehicle. You can see the step bar magic box is mounted over over there. Coming back around to the driver's side, this is the lighting switch. So this is your headlights, parking lights. So we've got turn signals. These things actually all work on the vehicle. There is already a key to this thing. And then American Autowire system actually had these plugs already. And then I had to splice into those in order to get the inputs needed for that equipment and that equipment. And I'm sure you've seen these little things that I've been using, these little zip tie containers. Those I found that the double-sided tape on it didn't always stick, especially to this type of rhino-lined surface. So a lot of them are actually just super glued down. We've got a factory fuse panel up there, some relays probably for headlights. And then once I start to come down and then around here is when I start TESA taping everything. In my mind's eye, that's when we're gonna start getting into issues where like you might be stepping on it or rubbing against it or dirt or washing the car on the interior, whatever, I don't know. But as you can see, the wiring runs all the way down there and then out there. I didn't actually know where any of the wiring from the factory was when this vehicle was dropped off here. Like I said, there was literally just no copper in it whatsoever. And then it pops out underneath the car and you can't really tell, but it's all wrapped in tape and it's secured by zip ties and it's run all the way back in there around the gas tank, and then it runs up into there, and you can see I made a little Deutsch connector to plug into that tail light. I've got a grounding point right there. All of the grounds are riv nuts. And then coming up here, this is the final taillight setup, which I absolutely hate because I think that they look upside down, but those are the taillights that he provided to me, so those are the ones that I installed. And in case you were curious, this is gonna be his dashboard right here, which is already done up and painted. That's for the steering wheel column. This is for his headlight switch. That's the Fusion radio that he selected and he already put in there, and then his Dakota digital gauges. Now, the final thing that I really want to talk about are these step bars, because this is actually the one thing that I feel like I was qualified to do on this vehicle. These are technically designed for a Jeep JL. He purchased them because they're just basically the shortest step bars that you can get from Amp Research. But if you haven't noticed, the problem with this vehicle is that there's no doors. So how are these supposed to know when they're gonna open? And so what I did was I made these little buttons right here, little stainless steel buttons, and you push the button and the halo comes on to indicate, of course, that the step is now down. Now, Luke originally welded up the brackets on the vehicle prior to paint so that this kit would bolt right onto it. This thing does need a step in order to get into this thing because it's certainly at an unreasonable height just to jump into it. And then just like normal, if you were closing the door, instead, once you get into the thing, you just push the button and then there's a 2-second delay and then the step goes up. And coming up on the passenger side, it's the exact same setup. We've just got this simple little bezel right there. You push the button and the thing comes out and you go, oh, cool. And you throw your footsies up there and you jump on in. And then once you're in there, you just gotta lean forward and touch the button and it's gonna put itself up and you're off on your way. And it might be a little bit weird, but I enjoyed this step bar installation the most out of this entire project because the wiring harness was specifically made for a Jeep JL. This is, of course, not a Jeep JL. So basically, I completely hacked apart the wiring harness and I made my own custom harness, again, completely wrapped in TESA tape. It looks absolutely beautiful. Here we are up underneath the vehicle. You can see it's all wrapped up in TESA, nice and pretty and securely mounted, and just runs right to the motor, all nice and OEM factory-ish. Because these Amp Research steps are actually really cool. I love the engineering that goes into the steps, but I gotta admit, man, their wiring harnesses are pretty poopy. So when I took that all apart, I realized the shortcomings of it and I upgraded a lot of it, and I just made sure that it matched and fit with the entire theme of this vehicle so far and met the same standards that everything else had been installed to. So I'm now done with my phase of this build and I get to hand it back to Luke, where he's gonna figure out all the mechanical stuff that he does over there. For the record, he's also the one that did this frame off restoration. His shop did all of the bodywork and the paint job on this, which came out absolutely beautiful. If you have any specific questions regarding this platform, I probably won't be able to answer it. However, there will still be pricing and product information in the video description for reference. This is just another fun job that I did that kind of showcases my expertise in doing 12-volt electrical, but I certainly don't expect full vehicle wiring harnesses to be a common thing in my repertoire, simply because I just don't understand enough about how the engines themselves operate. But with Luke being willing to come by once or twice a week and answer all of my questions, it was super awesome, and it was a really enjoyable joint partnership project with him. So that's all I gotta say. This is 13 with Superior Mobile by 13. Thank you so much for watching. You guys have yourselves a wonderful day. I'll talk to you later, all right? See ya!